You know, before my second interview, I hadn't been to the Allen Park facility since I interviewed here to be a PR intern, actually. And this is right before I ended up being a Rams PR intern. So it's really funny how everything became when it got full circle. But first off, I want to thank Sheila Ford Hamp and the entire Ford family. I want to thank Rod Woods. I want to thank Rod Wood, Chris Spielman, and Mike Disner. You know, you can prepare all you want for these jobs, and it was my first time coming into it. And the biggest advice that I received is that in terms of the interview process is that they're all different. And this process, and specifically to the first interview, is not truly knowing what to expect going in, and obviously had some nerves running and, didn't know what to expect. But in that first interview, the nerves quickly went away. And it really was Miss Hamp. And she had such an immediate positive impact on me so early on that I got off that interview and I told my wife I wasn't expecting that. And the reason why I say that is it literally started off as a virtual Zoom process. But by the end, it felt like we were sitting by a fireplace or a campfire, just getting to know each other. And, sometimes you just get that feeling that when you know something is right, it just feels right. Well, Miss Hamp just had an incredible soul that I was really able to connect with. And just the whole process was A1 first class. Couldn't be more excited. And the dialogue with Rod Wood had been excellent. The rapport I had with Chris Spielman, Mike Disner throughout the process was extremely genuine, extremely natural. And I couldn't be more excited to work with a group like this. When I first spoke to Chris Spielman, I almost was thinking like he was so wanting to help. And this is before the first, just trying to reach out. I thought it was a setup. Like, I was like, is he trying to set me up before the first? But truly just the more we spoke, he just has a heart of gold. And his sole purpose is to make the Lions better. And, Sheila couldn't have said any better. He truly embraces that servant role. And for that, I'm very, very thankful. And thank you so much. I want to thank my family, my lovely wife, Lisa. I'm sure she's watching. My son, BJ, and our daughter, Lola, who turns the big 5 months tomorrow. The love and support they provide, I can't put it into words. To put it blatantly, without them, I wouldn't be up here speaking with you guys today. So thank you so much, and I love you guys dearly. I want to thank my parents. They met at my alma mater at North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride. My mom, Joan, Dr. Holmes, as many call her. Just so much love and sacrifice in my upbringing, along with my older sister, Tara. And my mom always preached education relentlessly and always showed strong work ethic, working late nights. And my dad, Melvin Holmes, who played in the NFL for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he never really pushed football on me. He always raised me in a football environment, but he waited for me to ask him to play football. So I thought that was really cool and very, very impactful in my upbringing. And staying on family, I have to thank my uncle, Luther Bradley. Now, just bear with me. It feels very weird to say Luther Bradley because I've called him my Uncle Ruff ever since I was born. Actually, strange because that was my grandfather's name, Luther Bradley. And that was his father. And we didn't even call my grandfather Luther Bradley. We called him Big Daddy. So for me to say Luther Bradley sounds, so if you guys hear me say Uncle Ruff, just know that I'm referencing Luther Bradley. But my Uncle Ruff, all-time leading interception leader at Notre Dame school history, first-round pick for the Lions in 78. And me as a baby and as a young child, we spent many holidays here in Detroit. He was out there in that Sherwood Forest community, and growing up, My Uncle Luther, that's when he opened my eyes to Lions football. And just the tradition and the history that's deep-rooted, that he always had so much pride for and so much obsession for. And he's still active and player alumni and in the community. And I want to thank him for all his support he has provided me throughout this process. I think he's enjoying it more than me, actually, to get this job. And I'm sure he'll tell you that he can cover any USC wide receiver still to this day. That's just how he is. But I want to thank the Los Angeles Rams, Stan Kroenke, Kevin Demoff, Les Snead, Sean McVay, Tony Pastores, and the late Georgia Frontier. You know, I spent 18 years with the Rams and was basically raised in that franchise. Always been a first-class organization and can't thank them enough for everything that they've done for me and my family. Throughout that time with the Rams, I served under a few different GMs. My first one was Charlie Army. He gave me my first shot in scouting, and he taught me the foundation of player evaluation. Billy Devaney, you know, he gave me a shot to really take on that tough job of scouting down in the Southeast. And he taught me the importance of having conviction in your beliefs. And Les Snead, can't say enough great things about him. Obviously had learned under him the longest. And I want to stress the word learn. He taught me so much. But one of the biggest things is he kept teaching me how to keep the main thing. It's football. And he also taught me how to be concise. So I won't rattle off every single thing he taught me, but he invested very heavily in my development, and I'm very grateful for all he's done for me. Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Wilbert Montgomery. He was the first person to introduce me to Charlie Army, and he just saw a young kid fresh out of college that had a high passion for football, and we immediately formed a great relationship and just took off ever since. So thank you so much, Wilbert. So many others to thank. You know, I'm not a believer in that phrase, self-made, because I think that at any level of success that anybody gets, at some point, somebody helped you along the way at some point, no matter how big or small. For those others that haven't received a reply from me, I'm working on the 500 text messages. I will get to them, I promise you, but through all the text messages and through all the calls, I can truly say that appreciate the love and support through all of it. In terms of the purpose and the vision here, it's not complicated. You know, it'll be through a collaborative approach. We will build a winning and inspired culture to serve the best football product to this great city of Detroit so we can compete for championships on a consistent basis. And I stress the word serve. I know the general manager position, it's a lot of different responsibilities, but I truly believe that it is a service role. And with that vision, anybody that been to another introductory press conferences, you're probably saying, I've heard it all before. I've heard this before, but I will say this, there will be no ego in this process. There will be no ego in the culture. And everything is about the team. Bottom line, everything is about the team. We will be extremely collaborative, very intentional, and thorough and diligent in our process to truly earn it. And we will be inspired in our process. We will be aggressively smart, and we will embrace rapid evolution. Through all of this, we will keep laser focused on the main thing, and that's improving football and to serve a championship to the city of Detroit and this passionate fan base. One pride deserves that. Thank you so much, and without any further ado, I'll take any questions.
All right, Mike O'Hara, DetroitLions.com.
Okay, Brad, by the way, I'm 5 blocks from Luther's old house before he moved to the suburbs. I'm just wondering, what are some of the first things you're going to get down to do now in your job now as general manager? What do you have to accomplish, right? With roster stuff and all that. I know there's a big decision. People are going to ask you about that, about Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question. So first and foremost, once the head coach is on board, definitely want to make sure that we meet and basically continually to work to get on the same page and be aligned. Obviously, the evaluation of the total roster is extreme important. So, really looking forward to making sure that myself and when the head coach is in place, that we have take a full deep dive, very thorough process in the evaluation of the roster and make sure that we're on the same page as we approach these upcoming phases with free agency and the draft.
Tim Twentyman, DetroitLions.com.
Hey, Brad, good to see you again.
Thanks, Tim.
Hey, just your opinion on Matthew Stafford and the future of maybe that quarterback position here in Detroit.
Yeah, great question. So Matthew, great player. And what you really appreciate is, I think the talent level is easy to see, but you'll really appreciate how his intangibles show on film, just how urgent he plays, how competitive he is, the toughness that he shows. But it is my job to evaluate the entire roster. And through that process, I have not had any discussions with Matt or any players for that matter. So, I just want to be fair to the process and make sure that we evaluate that thoroughly. But, obviously, Matt, very good football player.
And then just one quick follow-up, just your use of technology. And I know we talked about it before, but just how you implement that, how important it is to you and why that's important in the process now.
Yeah. So, Tim, I've always said that technology is truly an accelerator. And I think it's only important, it's very critical to utilize the technology as the accelerator that it truly is. And there's so many different avenues in so many different areas in scouting and personnel where the use and acceleration of technology can be utilized in a very critical way. And it can be even down to just making sure that everybody that's connected, that are even outside of the building, that are on the road, let's make sure that this technology is being utilized properly and efficiently and in the right way to make sure that that's all connected. It goes from the college side to the pro side, the use of analytics, the use of, the evaluation process, how you communicate. That's probably one of the biggest in terms of the use of technology, but definitely there's a lot of different avenues, a lot of different products out there, but something that the Rams utilized heavily that, showed me and opened my eyes to a lot of different things and very much appreciative of that. And so those are some of the things that I would bring to the lines.
Justin Rogers, Detroit News.
Hey, Brad, welcome to Detroit.
Thanks, Justin. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I've got a couple quick ones for you. First, just given the depth of your college background, how important is it for you to get a supplement to your front office on the pro side, or is your confidence in the pro evaluation strong enough, you think?
Yeah, that's a great question, Justin. Well, first of all, let me say this. One of the great things that Les did with the Rams is everybody had these different roles, different titles, got your director of college scouting, your director of pro scouting, you got your assistant director of college. But what he did that I thought was very, very critical and really paid dividends is that he treated us all as one group. Basically, he's often referred to us as a basketball team. And if Les Snead, that's one of kind of an analogy that he'd make. But he basically had us involved in the decision-making process on both fronts, whether it's pro and college. So that experience alone, really bode well for me. And the other part of your question, Justin, is I think it's very important. And this is what I'll do is to make sure that it is a blended staff of experience, that is balanced with, people that have pro and college experience. So that's my approach. And, that's how I feel in the experience from that.
And I want to quickly ask you about intangibles because I've read the emphasis and importance you put on that in the college evaluation. You just mentioned it in your quick Stafford evaluation. Every guy in a decision-making role is looking for a guy that loves football. What is I guess the technique you've developed in evaluating guys on that intangible level?
Yeah, it's a great question. Very important to me. I think the intangibles are the separator of success at this level. And I think it's very important from my background and my experience up to this point with the Rams. We always made an emphasis on investing in high intangible football players. And you pointed out one thing, Justin, that means a lot to me. It's probably the most important is passion. And that is one intangible piece that I don't have any room for. I don't have any margin for error in. That's one piece is passion for football is extremely important, probably the utmost importance when it comes to intangibles. So that's something that I actually explained to Rod and Sheila during the interview process. Is that something that I just won't budge on when it comes to passion for football. So something that we had a lot of success with, or with the Rams had a lot of success, and something that would be an important piece that we'll have here at the Lions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kyle Meinke, M Live.
Hey, Brad, welcome to Motor City.
Thanks, Kyle. How you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. You didn't finish that story, I don't think. Were you offered the PR job with the Lions?
Yeah. So long story that, actually came in, was offered the job. I had interviewed with the Rams and was offered both, and had to make the tough choice to select the Rams. But definitely no slight. But I did come in the building with my head down a little bit, making sure that nobody was looking for me. But yeah, it all worked out.
Fair enough. One more question for you from me. There's been some debate in Detroit whether this is more of a reboot and get ready to go next year and compete for a championship, or more of a long-term kind of rebuild. I know you're in the early stages of this thing and you have a lot of hires to make and moving parts before you really get going. But I'm just curious at the outset what your vision is for this team, particularly up front, this year, or, do you think it's more of a long-term rebuild?
Yeah, that's good. That's a fair question. So definitely, I think when you get into the offseason, I think every franchise, every team will look at the areas that they might need some, let's say, retooling at, and just areas that need to be addressed. But the ultimate goal is to make sure that the most competitive team is on the field, and that starts right this year in entering the 2021 season. So not viewing this as, this will be a long term. I don't know how long it's going to take. That's not the approach. That's not the mindset going into it. The approach is to make sure that we can put the most competitive team possible out there on the field in 2021.
Chris Burke, The Athletic.
Hey, Brad, congratulations.
Thanks, Chris. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks. Kind of a follow-up on that, I guess. I'm just curious, sort of a two-parter. How much of what you've done on this draft class can you carry over into this role? And then just knowing how shortened this schedule is going to be for you and how much of a time crunch you're probably going to be in, is it realistic to implement all the things you want to implement in the next 2 or 3 months? Or is this going to be, by next year, you'll have all the process in place?
Yeah, that's it's funny you asked that, Chris, because I was thinking, I said, can you get every single thing done? And I don't know why that quote, if Rome wasn't built in a day, or it wasn't built in a day, or whatever, I'm probably going to get some flack for that if I didn't quote that properly. But to the college draft part and the very, I say the advantageous part of what my role is and what our process has been with the Rams before I took this job is that I'm very well versed in the college draft for this year's draft class in 2021. So I actually thought that was something that actually helped me coming into it, to have been pretty much have seen a good majority, if not all of the draft class coming up this year. And I do think that because that we're going to have a very dynamic, process-driven approach, I do think that you might not get every single I dotted and T crossed that you really want to have in before the draft, but the intent going into it is make sure that we can get as much ground covered as possible going into it.
Michael Rothstein, ESPN.
Hey, Brad, congratulations.
Thanks, Michael.
Got two questions for you. First, it had been reported that part of what you had sold to Sheila and Rod was a bold plan. I'm just curious to you what the first part of that bold plan is.
Well, I'd say bold plan. I know that. Let's date back to my time with the Rams. There was a lot of what was deemed as bold moves that I was very fortunate enough to be a part of. And often when those moves occur, you really you want to see the outcome. What was the actual result? I can't say that in respect to my time with the Rams that all those quote unquote bold moves, it was truly a result from what the process was. And so every single thing is going to be process driven in terms of adhere to a very dynamic, sound process. And as, Les Snead says it all the time, you can surrender your results to that process. And so that will be not saying specifically, what the plan will be, but the approach in terms of having a very, very sound process, then you can get some bold results coming from that.
And then my second question is, to get to that point, what changes do you feel you need to make right away to accelerate this process?
I think I would go back to sticking to the process that I do have planned and the process that I will have in place. There's really not one specific item or area that's like it has to be changed right now. I just have a lot of confidence in the plan and the process that we'll have in place. And so if we stay disciplined in that approach to that process, then we should get the necessary results that we desire.
Thank you.
Thank
Larry
you.
Lage. Larry Lage, Associated Press.
Hey, Brad, first of all, I like your haircut.
Great minds think alike, Larry.
That's right. Did any other team reach out to interview you for a GM job this offseason, or have they ever in the past? And when you were a PR intern, did you ever dream of landing a job like this? And have you had any kind of pinch me moments? Sorry to squeeze a few in there, but.
Well, the first one, if I had any other team, so this was my first interview circuit, if you could classify it as that. But I did have two teams that I did interview with, both here in Detroit and the Falcons. But, just the pinch me moment probably did come exactly when I came in the building for my second interview. Because again, like I said in the opening, I had not been in this building since I interviewed for that PR internship. And that's when I just walking in here then, that was like 18, almost 19 years ago. And then coming back here now as the general manager, that was definitely, if you would, I like the way you put it, a pinch me moment where it really just sunk in of like the wow. And it's just, it really was a surreal feeling and couldn't be more excited about it.
Was this ever a dream job for you? I mean, when you started working in the NFL, did you say like someday I want to be the general manager of one of these teams, or what was your goal?
Yeah. So great question. Back in the 8th grade, I actually, I was in junior high school and my parents kind of lived close to the school. And I'll put it frankly, I skipped school to watch the draft. And I knew the draft was coming on TV, and it was the 93 draft. And I knew it was coming on ESPN. I skipped school and I went home when my parents were gone at work, and I watched the draft. And that moment, I just got enamored with the process of scouting. That's when I fell in love with scouting. They were talking about, I remember they were showing, I believe it was Jerome Bettis just running the ball, and they were describing the traits and showing the highlights, and they're showing the general manager and they're showing the coach. And I just fell in love with the process up until then. And I always told myself back then that regardless of what happens, I want to say it was like even my senior year of high school, I was watching the 97 draft. And me and my buddy, we were sitting at fast food McDonald's restaurant and just having some cheeseburgers. And I said, we had just got done watching the draft. And I said, I don't know what's going to happen with my football career. I knew I was going to college to play football, but I knew that I was going to definitely get into scouting at some point. And just the GM job specifically, when I got into scouting, I never really looked ahead. I was just so happy to be in the industry of scouting, is that when I was a scouting assistant, I just wanted to be the best scouting assistant. And when I was an area scout, I just wanted to be the best area scout. And, all the way up until, obviously being in the director of college scouting role, I was truly just trying to be the best college director in the entire league. And so obviously when I kind of was learning about, potential opportunities, to potentially interview for a GM job, that's when you got to start preparing and all that. And that actually felt different to me because I was always so laser focused on what my job was at hand, never looking ahead. And I really just wanted to dominate my role that I was in. So to answer your question, I know it's kind of a, branched off answer, but I really didn't say back then that I want to be a general manager. I fell in love with scouting. And then as I worked my way up, I just focused on dominating my role at every step.
Corey Woods, Woodward Sports.
Hey, Brad, how you doing? Welcome to Detroit.
Thanks, Corey. How you doing?
Pretty good. Sorry about that. I had you on mute. I have a question. So the discrepancy between Pro Bowlers and all-pro athletes of the Rams and the Lions is pretty large. What will be your approach of bringing that type of talent to Detroit?
Yeah, that's a great question, Corey. So, I'll start with what I was saying earlier about, how important the intangible aspect is. And, we always talk about, let's invest in reliability and let's invest in reliable players. And obviously, we're not overlooking talent. A baseline of talent is very necessary. It is the NFL. But I truly believe that the separator of success is those players that do have those high intangible traits. And so that's a model that was used with the Rams that obviously bode for a lot of draft success. And, that same approach will definitely be carried over here with the Lions.
John Macaroon, SI.
Brad, congratulations. Welcome to Detroit.
Thank you, John. How you doing?
Very well. I do have two questions for you. You did bring up Detroit's large and passionate fan base, but I'm wondering, there's also a growing and large portion of the fan base that's becoming more skeptical regarding Detroit's opportunities to get back to the postseason. What message do you have to fans who are skeptical in the process regarding Detroit's history since the organization has only had one playoff win in decades?
Yeah, and when you say process in terms of the player personnel, player acquisition process, or
just the process of building this organization to where it needs to go?
Well, I would definitely tell all Lions fans, just as you say process, I'd say let's all trust the process that's going to be in place. It will be a very sound process. It'll be a very thorough and diligent process. And we're going to, like I said earlier, we're going to surrender those results to the process. And I've always been one that likes to go through the process, but tries to delay my intuition towards the end. So if we keep the process sound and then we make the right gut intuitive decisions going forward, I believe that the Lions fan base are going to be very, very happy with the results that they see. I'm so excited about how passionate, my Uncle Ruff, Luther, he used to always educate me, and all the way up through this process and the interview process, about this Lions fan base. And he says that, they've been through ups, they've been through downs, but they're showing up every week in and week out. They're showing up and packing that house in. When he told me that, I was so excited. He just kept getting me even more excited. I said, wow, if we can deliver a winner here to this great city of Detroit, because the thing about not only passionate fan base, but you always hear Detroit as, blue collar, working class. But the more intel that I gathered on this great city is that it just seems like a city of character that just has great character. And so on top of those other great things, I think that characteristic of having great character is something that I really, really am excited about.
Yeah, my second question, if you recall, in 2017, Sean McVay got the process off pretty well in his first season, went 11-5 after a 4-win season. What lesson from that season can you potentially pass on to Detroit's first-year head coach to maybe get the ball rolling a little bit faster?
Yeah, so that's a great question. When Sean first came on board in 2017, I'm sure as you probably have heard, the theme was "We, Not Me." And that really permeated through the entire organization. And it was such a collaborative approach with everybody involved. And it wasn't just coaching and scouting. It was coaching, scouting, player development, athletic performance. I mean, everything was such a collaborative approach that truly was a big, let's say, a big ingredient for the recipe of success that we had in that quick turnaround that we had.
All right, we have time for five. Sorry about that. We have time for 5 more questions, one each. Mike Stone, 97.1.
How you doing, Brad? Congratulations. First of all, it's okay to use rebuild in this city. The fans are used to it. Our other 3 teams are all going through rebuilds. It's okay. That being said, how do you rebuild the defense? Because, as you know, it was pretty poor especially last year. Is it the talent or is it the scheme, or because that defense was horrific?
Yeah, well, please don't get mad at me, Mike, if I don't use the word rebuild, if I just continue to pivot towards retool. But I do think that there are some building blocks on this defense currently. Obviously, we will address that side of the ball just like we'll address the offensive side of the ball. There's no area that we won't work to improve in. But I do think that there are some good, young, talented pieces that are still in their phase of developing. I do think that there's some veterans that have brought good production to the table. So I would definitely say going to retool in some areas, but there are some building blocks there.
Carlos Menares, Detroit Free Press.
Yeah, Brad, having worked primarily outside of the building, how do you go about, or what gives you the confidence to build a culture within the building, with the players, with the staff, with everybody?
That's a great question. So, when I started with the Rams in St. Louis, I was inside that building for close to a decade. And within that time, I was able to learn how everything worked. Was able to learn how the pro side worked, how the college side worked, how the football operations work. I was very fortunate within my role, especially at the early stages, is I did a lot of work with the coaching staff. And through that time, I really got a very good appreciation and understanding of how everything operated from entire football operations standpoint. And even since the team relocated to LA and I was in Atlanta, I spent a extraordinary long amounts of time in LA, all the way to the point where I almost qualified for residency out there in California. And it really, critical times too, long amounts of times as we're ramping up for postseason play, long amount of times as we're getting ready for free agency in that building, for long extended amounts of times as we're getting ready for the combine, and then obviously through the entire draft process. So that's the part that I feel very confident in terms of my experience that I've spent inside the building, both not only in St. Louis, but also in Los Angeles.
Jamie Edmonds, WDIB.
I wasn't expecting to go now, so nice to meet you. Welcome to Detroit.
Nice to meet you, Jamie. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about, there's not a lot of diversity within the NFL front offices. Detroit has had Martin Mayhew and now yourself, and that is something very positive for this organization in my point of view. What do you think of that?
Well, that's a great question. Glad you asked it. And it's something that's very important to me. I'll take you back to like I was saying, that my dad played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was an offensive lineman. And it was in the late 60s, early 70s, where he shared with me, even at a young age, when he got done playing, obviously, was that he should share with me the experiences of his struggles that he had to go through in different, let's say, stereotypes regarding race, because he was a black offensive lineman. And he told me he kind of related it to offensive linemen or quarterbacks. He says, when I was playing, people didn't think that, black should be on the offensive line or at the QQB position. And then even up to right before I got married, we had to go through this premarital counseling through my wife's church. And they told us to make vision boards. And I'd never heard what a vision board was ever. So they explained it to me, and me and my wife had to make one. And part of my vision board was a cutout of Ozzie Newsome hoisting the Super Bowl trophy. And that was a symbolism of hope for me at the time, to see someone like Ozzie Newsome, a successful black GM, to host up a Lombardi trophy. And I'll even take it a step further, as, I am a proud HBCU alum, graduate of North Carolina A&T State University. And coming from a historically black college and university that's deep rooted within myself and my family, I take a lot of pride in that, in terms of when I cut out that picture of Ozzie Newsome hosting up that trophy, I thought of when I was able to get this role. I said, well, I hope that I can be that same symbolism of hope for younger kids, black and brown kids, that can look up to people like myself, look up to people like Chris Greer, look up to people like Andrew Berry that are in these roles to provide hope. And the other thing I would say on that I think is very important is that it's often looked at lack of diversity at the GM level. But one thing that I've always looked at is we need to continually to put more effort and to improve the diversity right up under the GM level. So when I look across the league, I see that there's less than 10 people of color that are at the director of college scouting role. There's less than 10 in the league that are at the, if you want to call it the assistant GM role, or whatever that number 2 position is. So to add more diversity to those levels to make the pipeline even stronger, I think will be definitely a step forward. But I can't say that I'm very much appreciative that Michela Ford Hamp and Rod Wood, that they opened up their search to a diverse field of candidates. And I'm very, very excited, and I'm very, very appreciative to be in this role now.
Bob Winowski, Detroit News.
How are you, Brad? Good to meet you.
Thank you. How you doing?
Good, thank you. I know you can't talk about your head coach yet, but I wonder, vision-wise, when you envision the team you're going to put together and the coach you have, what tenets are you looking for? What qualities? People wonder, you're going to build an offense, you're going to build a defense. I know you're going to build everything, but what do you want out of your head coach, and what do you want when your team and coach are put together? What will it look like in your mind?
Yes, that's a great question, Bob, because, I've always thought of, and I've always had in my mind, when I looked at a head coach, I never had a preference of, he's got to be an offensive coach, he's got to be a defensive coach, he's got to run this system, he's got to run that system. My number one core traits was, first of all, he's got to be a leader of men. He's got to be a leader of men. He's got to have presence. And within that presence, he's got to have poise. He had to have confidence. He has to have command. And he has to have mental toughness. He has to have intelligence. And I stress the mental toughness part because there will be ups and downs where that stress tolerance has to be at the right level and to be able to persevere through those moments. So those are some of the tenets, a strong passion to develop. I just know that we'll be aggressive through all avenues of player acquisition. But, let's just be honest. I come from the college draft background, and, I look forward to building this team through the draft. And so if it is a young team, I want to make sure that the head coach has a strong passion with his assistants to have a strong passion to develop players.
All right. Last question, Michael Stats, WJR.
How you doing, Brad? Congrats on getting the job.
Hey, Michael, thank you.
Just wonder if you could kind of walk me through like your first steps, initial steps on how you assess the roster and the first steps you move. Obviously, free agency, the draft not too far away.
Yeah, it's a great question. So initially, immediately, once the head coach is on board, I want to make sure that we sit down and make sure that I am in direct alignment, in full understanding of what his philosophy is and what his vision is. I've always had this question of, well, what is your vision of the team? And I can tell you what I want it to look like, but truly it is the head coach's vision. He's the face of the team. He's the voice of the team. So I want to make sure that, like I was saying about the service role as a GM, I want to make sure that I'm providing the head coach and aiding him with the best possible resources to make sure that his system and philosophy is running at an elite level. So that's first and foremost that will have to happen. And once we get that on board, then I think that that'll be a great start of the process of how we'll dive into the initial outset of free agency and what those plans are, and to make sure that we're bringing in players that truly, truly fit. I never forget when Sean came in 2017 with the Rams, is that, we signed Robert Woods and Andrew Whitworth, and, they might not have been, I'm not sure if you want to deem it the popular names, but they were fits. They were, culture fits. They were schematic fits. So, that's a good intentional approach and model that, I can definitely take and follow as I embark on this journey with the Lions. And, just for that relationship, I always said that it has to be tight as family. So me and the head coach, we have to be, I'm sure you heard, aligned at the hip in lockstep. But I truly think tight as family is very important, because there might be times where you might not see eye to eye, but when you're tight as family, you can work through those things and come to a winning solution.
Appreciate it, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. One pride.